We're going to learn the second Sicha in Pashas Vaeschanan Chelek Yutes. The Rabbi starts as follows. Wegen dem Seder Hanochas Tfilin sagt die Gemara, Tana, Kishu meniach shel yad v'achakach meniach shel reish, ukishu chelet shel reish v'achakach chelet shel yad. When he puts on tefillin first, he puts on the shel reish, and afterwards he puts on the shel reish, the shel yad, and the same thing is also when he takes off the tefillin, he takes off first the shel reish, and then he takes off the shel yad. What continues on Bishlem, Kishu meniach shel yad v'achakach meniach shel reish. That I understand that first you put on the shel yad and then the shel reish chsiv. And the pasuk it says first which means the shel yad, and afterwards it says. So here we know that you have to put on, because the pasuk is talking about putting on the tefillin, that you have to first put on the shel yad and afterwards the shel reish. How do we know you have to take off first the shel reish and then the shel yad? Rabbi, the Gemara says, Rabbi said, Ravuna Asberali, Ravuna explained to me in this previous limud which we learn, from the pasuk, you will learn out as long as it's on the shel reish, as long as it's beinenecha, it have to be two. And as Rashi explains, the Rabbi brings on the continuation, Vahoyu is a plural, mashma shtayim, that means, in other words, that calls manchi as long as it's between your eyes, which means the shel reish is laying. Yush time has to be two, which means kol manchi is shel reish menachin, as long as the shel reish is laying on your head. Oishem shel yad nami menachin, the shel yad also has to be laying on your hand. Almas from here will know that shel reish cholos, you have to take off first the shel reish, because if you're going to take off first the shel yad, comes out that the shel reish is laying on your head as long as while there's only one. This is the Pirush Rashi. In actuality, later on in the order 9, the Rebbe is assigned to a thesis in Erechin. In that thesis is a mashman that the thesis learns it out not from the word vahoyu, which is plural, but from the word letoitofos, which is plural. That when it's the teitofos is on your head, has to be two. That's mashma from the thesis in Erechin. This is the Gemara. The Rebbe continues on in Mechilta even pasuk. On which pasuk? Vahoyu lechol is al yadacha, which we say in the parsha of Kadishli Kopcher, which we say Rabbi in Tamstville, but there it says in the Mechilta, state, Kol Zman, Shetfilin Shel Yad Biyad, Ten Es Shel Reish B'Reish. As long as the tefillin of Shel Yad is on the hand, you have to put the Shel Reish on the Reish. We can't umru from here, we learn out that mitzvah tefillin, Kishu Neisen Shel Yad, V'achakach Neisen Shel Reish. First you put the Shel Yad and afterwards the Shel Reish. And when you take it off, you take off first the shel reish and then the shel yad. How we learn out from the pasuk? The Rebbe actually is going to talk about it in Sif Beis. The Rebbe in Sif Beis talks about one prat only, legabi de chalitza. The pashtus, the Rebbe doesn't talk about how we learn, how the Mechilta learns out, legabi de levishas hatfil, that it has to be first the shel yad and after the shel reish. How do you learn out from this pasuk? The Rebbe in Ha'orah 4 brings down that in certain girsois it says the hemshech of the pasuk uletetoves beinenecha. The Rebbe brings down from Eitzos of the Mechilta of Horowitz. The Rebbe says that this is a mistake because the pasuk uletetoves beinenecha, the continuation of the pasuk uletetoves beinenecha, is actually the second pasuk, the pasuk of Vahoyu Kviyacha, not the first pasuk. In the first pasuk, it doesn't say the word uletetoves beinenecha. The second parsha also doesn't say, as the Rebbe quotes in the Mechilta, as the Mechilta quotes, "V'hoya l'chol ois al yodcha." And the second parsha says, "V'hoya l'ois al yodcha," without the word "v'hoya l'chol." So obviously, we're talking about the first parsha, and the second raya. The Rebbe also brings with all the droshes in the Mechilta over there is on the first parsha. So obviously, it's not the parsha. It's not the pasuk v'letetoves beinenecha. It must be the first parsha. In certain gesois, the Rebbe does not bring it down in this order. On certain gesois of the Mechalta actually brings down which means the continuation of the pasuk. You need the continuation of the pasuk, which says So obviously, the limud of the Mechalta is also the pashtus In other words, legabe the levishes at tefillin is also bapashas, because first it says and afterwards it says ulizikorin beinenecha. This is just to explain lechoida what's pshat in the mechilta. The Rebbe continues on and says, "Darf man verstehen. Aleph, was ist der Tam, was die Gemorre lernt, ist dem Seder von der Nochtfilm von der Posek und Kshartam begeimen, Vahoyu begeimen, Parshas Seinu, which is in Chumash Devarim in Parshas Vaeschanan, und nicht von dem Posek, was steht freier in Parshas Bei. The Mechilta learns it out, wo die Mitzvah Tefillin, wo die Mitzvah von Tefillin wird angesagt zum ersten Mal, wie in Mechilta. Why is that the Gemara chooses to learn from a much later Posek, not from the Posek, which is the first time in the Torah, which is Parshas Bei, like the Mechilta? Beis, the Rebbe asks another kasha, another shaila from Pashas Gemara Zet Uis, as medaf onkum mit zwei limudim. If you learn the Gemara of Pashas, comes out that you need two different limud. Ein limud of dem din kshu meniach shel yad v'chakach meniach shel reish, and that you learn out from the seder of the posik. That first it says ukshartom, and then it says v'hoyu lit. Und a bezunder limud separately, as the Gemara says, Ravona Asberali, that's a different limud. If them didn't chelet shel reish, v'chakach el shel yad, that you learn out from the word v'hoyu, then it has to be plural. Two different limud. Mashenke leide mechilte is beide din ben naruskel, and from example limud according to the chilta, both of them we learn from the same limud. How we learn from the same limud? The Rebbe will continue on. But the shaila over here is, why is it that the Gemara learns it out from two different limudim, and the mechilta learns it out from one? Steve Bates. You can't you can answer one with the other. First, Levaya to explain, Leute Mechilta, which he learns it out from the Posik, Vahoyu Lechol Eisayotchom, wie Azoi lernt men Aruis from Posik, euch dem zweiten Prat, Cheletz Shel Reish, Vachgach Shel Yad. Where is the limud, the second Prat of the Chelitza of taking off the tefillin? As I explained before, Mele legabe the limud that you put it on the pashas the taichis, as I think the pshat is, because in the pasuk it says afterwards, as I said before, the continuation ulizikorim beinenecha after v'hoyu lechol eisayot, just like by the Gemara, the Seder. The Rebbe doesn't mention it, but the pashas that's a pshat in the mechilta. Shaila is, how do you learn out the second prat of the chalitzah? And the Rebbe explains the bir bezeh. The chiluk zwischen der Tzivu v'hoyu lechol eisayot in Parshas Kaddish, und der Tzivu gshartem lo isal yodecha sheba Parshas Seinu. What's the difference take in the limudim? Is as a Parshas Seinu is the mitzvah sasiyah hakshir shala odom. It goes on a person. Ukshartem lo isal yodecha. Ukshartem means you have to put on the tefillin, so it's a limud on the person. Mashenki in the pasuk v'hoyu lechol lo isal yodecha b'Parshas Kaddish. The tzivui v'hoyo means that the tefillin on zayin lo yisal yodchol is a kohen beinenecha. Ubesignon acher, Rebbe explains in simple words. There's posuk sheba Parshas Seinu that wegen gavra. Parshas Kaddish v'oilchol lo yisal yodchol is talking about the chefza. Is it talking about the person, the mitzvah, or is it talking about the actual chefza of the mitzvah? Shartom lo yisal yodchol is talking about the pu'ulas adam. He has to tie his tefillin, which is the means it shall be, it means it's talking about the tefillin. And as the Rebbe brings down on the order 6, what is it afkemina? Between, if you say it's on the gavra and the chefza, it's not just chkidus with altar and afkemina ledina. The Rebbe says the afkemina is a pashata. Kishe koshram bizman she'ein chiyav tefillin. If it ties it when in the time when there's not a chiyav tefillin, ties it in the middle of the night when there's not a chiyav tefillin, is he become the mitzvah or not? If you're going to say, and Reya Harder 23, then we'll talk about it later. If you're going to say it's a mitzvah and the chefza tefillin is on you when it comes to a day, even though you put it on before, it doesn't make a difference. And once the day comes and tefillin's on you, you become the mitzvah. If you're going to say it's on the gavra, none with the mitzvah is what the gavra does, being that you're putting it on before the zman chiyuv tefillin, you're not makayim what says in the Torah, kshatim you should tie it, because you're tying it in a time which is not the mitzvah. And the Rebbe continues on in the plane. When the Yes, the Gemara read wegen say that hanochas tefillin mitzad gavra, the chiyuv gavra, being that the Gemara is talking about the gavra. How do we know the Gemara is talking about it? The gloss from the Gemara is Kishuhu meniach, when he puts it on. You're talking about the person putting on film. Meniach shel yad v'chakach meniach shel reish. Therefore, being that the Gemara is talking about the Gavra, it makes more sense to learn it out. Lentes the Gemara arush from the pasuk is the mitzvah hamaniach ukshartam lo yisayidacha b'hadavar l'tavis benenecha. That's why the Gemara learns it out from that pasuk, even though it's a later pasuk, because the pasuk is talking about the pu'ulas hagavra, what the person has to do. Und the Rebbe darf man haben a besonder limit, as we said before. Calls man shebenenach yishtayim if chalitzes film, because the pasuk is talking only about what. But da noch ist film. Und the chalitzes was hat nicht kein Scheiches. Kein Scheiches zum Chiyuv said that noch ist film. Taking off doesn't have anything to do with putting it on. Therefore, the gabi, the chalitzes film, you need it separately. In Mechilt order. But that's nicht wegen mitzvahs hanochas tefillah mitzad the gavra. The Mechilt is not talking the prat of the mitzvah mitzad the gavra. The Mechilt is talking nor wie the tefillah als hefze, zeinen, zeizanen. They are lo oisal yodchol the konmen necha. They are a sign on your hand and a remembrance between your eyes. In other words, we're talking about the hefze. The fan is the limit from pasuk, as we said before, v'hoyo l'chol b'esayodchol. Which the pasuk is also not talking about the pu'ulas hagavra. The pasuk is talking about the inyan, the hefts of the tefillin. As calls man, shetfilin shel yad b'yad, ten shel rosh b'rosh. As long as the tefillin is there, not we're talking about the hefts of the tefillin is there. Put on the shel rosh. Me'elem mekan omru. It's one limud. Vaeschanan from them. Oich ben geil lemaise ha'adam in beides manim. Being that the hefts of the tefillin has to have that both have to be together, because as long as the shel rosh is on your head, you have to have two. It doesn't make a difference if it's legabi da'anocha, legabi that. The legabi da'anocha is a tefillin, or legabi the chalis is a tefillin. In beina zachen lent man ois kishu nation shel yad v'chakach nation shel reish, or kishu chelis ches etzereis v'chakach shel yad. Weil in the meaning from v'hoyo, you're talking legabi the chetzer is kechiluk between anocha or a chalis is a tefillin. As long as the tefillin is on you, has to have tefillin too. As long as the shel reish is on your head, you have to have the shel yad. So therefore, it doesn't make a difference. Gabi hanocha or gabi tefillin, gabi the chalitz. The Rebbe continues on in Sivkim. Es aber schwer, as it's an island, and it's hard to learn that the whole thing is legabi chiluk of the gavra and the chefs. Even though we're going to see later on in the Sicha that the Rebbe is not really going away from Gavra and Chefza, but to put it totally in Gavra and Chefza is a little hard, and the Rebbe gives a whole bunch of reasons why it's hard to explain that the Chiluk is only like the Gavra and the Chefza. The Rebbe also brings in order 8, which is starting with L'chatchila, before any Pilpulim more Svaris, the Pasik, Lahoyer. In this pasuk, as you said before in the other 4, we're learning it. The Mechita learns out from the pasuk of Kaddish, not the pasuk in Pashas Vayik V'Yacho. The difference between both pasukim is the Pashas of Kaddish, as the Rebbe brings down the Lashon and in the other 4. There it says so we're talking about the person, the Gavra. Mashenkin the pasuk in Vayik V'Yacho doesn't say L'chol. Over there, talking about the Chefta itself. So if you would learn that taka out from the second pasha, okay, then you're talking about the chefza, I get it. But we're trying to say now that the Mechilta is talking totally like about the chefza, and what pasuk is the Mechilta bringing? Is talking about the gavra. So the Rebbe says that from the pasuk itself is already mashma that he can't totally put it on the gavra chefza. But the Rebbe goes back into the pnim. The Rebbe says in the brackets, noisef. Of them, but lafizeh is not glatik has cholos haloshen from the mechilta. In other words, in the ha'ara we're talking about the pasuk. Now we're talking about the mechilta. The loshen mechilta is also not answer. What says in the loshen mechilta? Calls man tefillin shel yad b'yad 10 shel reish b'reish. 10 is the pulas hagavra. 10 you place it. By lafia now, according to what we said before, that it's totally the difference in the gemara and the mechilta. The mechilta is talking only l'gabe the chefza. Hat gedacht sagen, aber seder hafach, he should have said it differently. That he should have said, Tia shall reish bereish, Tia is on the chefza, not on pulas hagavra. Tia shall be the reish, shall be on your head. Calls man that the yad is shall yad. Okay, jetzt ist a Loschen, was redt. The Loschen would bring out more wegen der Tefillin. Wie sie sind immer noch einmal Gufei. Alle Tefillin are on you. Und nicht a Loschen, was redt wegen Hanachosam al Yidei Ha'odom. The Loschen in the Mechilte Tain is also expressing that it has to do something with the Pu'ulas Agabra as well. So besides this, the Rebbe goes on and he says, Gefindt men as, in Sifri B'Pashas Seinu, until now we learned the Gemara and the Mechilte. Now we're going to bring a Sifri. Steht der selber Loshen in the Mechilte. It says almost the same Loshen as in the Mechilte. It says, Kol Zman Shel Yad B'Yad, Ten Shel Reish B'Reish, Mekan Omru Sheneisen Tfilin, Nation Shel Yad Tchila V'Chikach Shel Reish, Uk Shechele Shel Reish, Tchila V'Chikach Shel Yad, which means that you learn both Limudim out from the same pasuk, just like in the Mechilte, not like in the Gemara, you need two different Limudim. Afal Pekain, learned this on Sifri Aruis, from the pasuk Sheba Parshas Seinu, Uk Shantam Leis Al Yadach V'Hoyolut Tabas Benenecha, was read wegen dem Kiev o Mitzvahs HaAdam, Tefillin Shal HaAdam. So in other words, if you're going to say that the Mechilte, being that the Mechilte learns both Limudim from the same pasuk, is that right that the Mechilte is talking about, the Mechilte is talking about Tzadach Hefzer, and the Sifri also learns both Limudim from the same pasuk, which would mean also that he's learning in Tzadach Hefzer. Afal became which pasuk we're learning? The pasuk of Kshartam. The Rebbe before explained that it depends where you're learning out what we're talking about. If you're learning it out in the Gavra, you're learning for the pasuk of Kshartam, it's talking about the Gavra. If you're in Hefzer, you should learn that from a different pasuk. But Afal became the Sifri learns it out in the pasuk of Kshartam. One side. Oit Tzorachim b'Gemara Gufa. A side on the Gemara. La'achrei dem, as for how you learn the Gemara up, as Kol Zman Shebein Necha Yishtayim. The second limud. When we're talking about the chalitzas of tefillin, the Gemara says that Avun explains that v'hoyu lititofa is v'hoyu means that Kol Shaban Shebein Necha, as long as it's Yeshua, there should be two. It's the shame, be my high time of a statement. As Geshu Cheles Cheles Shel Reish v'Chakach Cheles Shel Yad, be the Gemara Zog. From that, you learn out the Gabi Din of chalitzas of tefillin. Wees medach euch. So automatically you also know, so you can learn it from the same one limud, also the Gabi Danachas film. But plural means what? That you can't put on the Shel Yad before you put on the Shel Reish before you put on Shel Yad. You have to first put on Shel Yad. Okay, the Rosh Hashanah you're learning that from one person. Sleep was that the Gemara dem limud von Seder. So why does the Gemara need the first limud? That being that it says first ukshartam and then v'hoyu. Once we know the explanation that v'hoyu is plural, we know both limudim. So again, you don't need two limudim. And we said before that one of the difference between the Mechilte and the Gemara is that the Gemara learns that from two different limudim, and the Mechilte learns that from one limud. Why do you need it for? Why not? Why can't you learn why can't you learn out for one pasuk at the end? Zog the Rebbe in Hasib Dalit, look at Yesh Leiman, as Enoch and Ami. Taka like that. In the beginning, Taka, we thought you could learn it out from the Seder Psukim. We have to learn it out from the Seder Psukim. The Gabi the Din of Hanochas Atil. Or Belafi Hamaskona. Once the Gemara explains what Avuna Asbarali, Enoch and Ami, let me Taka up, Beit the Dinim, Saik Shu Menich Menich Shal Yad Vachkach Menich Shal Reish. You learn outside the din of Anoch and inside the din of Chalitza. From them was Omer Kro B'Hoyu Tabas Benenecha calls the man Shebenenecha Ishtayim B'Hoyu is Lashon Rabim. So we know you have to learn, you have to have both at the same time. And when you find that you become a poskim in certain poskim, Rebbe's would sign over here to Tesis and Erchin that they learn. Tesis learns from the one limud, v'hoyu. As I said before, Tesis doesn't learn that from the v'hoyu. Tesis mentioned related to Tobis. Lashon Rabim, that you need to take both. A different side Anocha, and Tesis being inside the Anocha, inside the what do you call it? Inside the Chalitza. Und wenn wir gefunden haben, hier bekam ein Poskim, und damals ist das echt massiv mit der Rasche von Sifri now. Eva say, now it makes sense also the Sifri. That both limudim are learned out from the same posik. And which posik? Sifri Taka brings on. So Enochanam the Mechilte learns that from the different posik. the Sifri, but the Gemara learning out the Maskonas Gemara goes exactly like the Sifri that people learn out both limudim for one limud, both dinim for one limud, being it says Bahoyu or Letetofis, both of them, and then even Kudav, it's Lashon Rabim. So we know both of them. You know, side and Ninim, but Nochas has to be first the Shilyad, side the Dul Chalitzas has to be Shilyad. Over the Rebbe says, and we answered this question. If eventually if you're saying the second Gemara, you take a learning get out also only from one limud. That will both dinim from one limud. That means everybody, the Gemara, the Mechilta, the Sifri, everybody learns out both dinim from one limud. Hein favos lernt das auf die Gemara und der Sifri. Why tackle do they learn it out? Nicht. Arus von der Fredigen Pasuk in Pashas Kaddish. Why are you learning it out from Chumash Devarim? Why can't you learn it out from Pasuk Kaddish? Which is the first time it says the limud. Euch fordert sich Hasbara in the beide Fahren limud. What's the difference between both limudim? Whether you learn it out from Ukshartom or you learn it out from what do you call it? If you learn it out from Kaddish. See the chiluk zwischen sie is no mashmois dorshin. Oder sie do an afgemina lahaloche from welchem posik melent tosaruis. Is there any difference between both the mudim, or do you learn it out both from the same limud? What the Rabbi is asking now. Whether the chilik mashmois darshan or the nafkamina lalocha, before in Ha'ara 6, the Rebbe said that nafkamina from both lamudim is a nafkamina lalocha. The Rebbe said before that if you learn the kshartom, which is on the gavrand, if you put it out before the morning, then it's no good. But if it's on mitzvah on the chefza, then it's okay. So what is the Rebbe asking over here now if it's a nafkamin lalacha? The Rebbe said before it's a nafkamin lalacha. It's Vaist Uis, I'm not sure, but it's Vaist Uis, that's why this Shaila comes after the previous Shaila. Because in the previous Shaila comes out that the Rebbe is taking it away from the Nukuda that the nafkamin is Gavra and Chefza. That's what it seems b'pashtus, l'cha'oira. So once we throw a suffix whether the nafkamin is Gavra and Chefza, ibazei, so now nafkamina, lav dafke, that nafkamina which we learned before is a nafkamina. Another nakud I want to also be made is Yeshlema b'derech hefsher that we mentioned before that in Ha'ara 9, the Rebbe's Messiah to the Tesis in Erchin, which over there, the Tesis learns out both lemudim from the same pasuk, Bahoyu L'Titovis, not Bahoyu but L'Titovis, as mentioned before, from that Tesis. Then the Rebbe brings down Avol, the Hemshech of the Ha'ara 9, Avol b'Tesis v'Ramaschal L'Kshartam Minochis, the Gemara Minochis, it cites Kshartam, Lei Mashmakein. Over there is Mashma that he brings, he learns it from two different lemudim. Then at the end, and he also brings in parentheses, also Tesis Dibra Maschali Buri in Yuma Daf Lamed Gimel and Beis, also Lei Mashmakein. Yeshlema B'derech Hefsher, Lav Dafke, I'm right, but the Yeshlema B'derech Hefsher, because the Tesis, if you look inside the Tesis, in Menachos, the whole raya that Lei Mashmakein is only what the Gemara Tesis quotation from the Gemara. But the actual Tesis doesn't say anything that it's mashma that he doesn't learn from one limud, that he actually learns it from two limudim. If you go look inside, it's only from the quotation what the Gemara, what Tesis brings up from the Gemara. Mashenkin the Tesis in Yuma over there, Tesis inside the prima Tesis says that it comes out to be two limudim. Can Yeshlema B'derech Hefsher? I don't know, but just to be made. Let's go back into the Sicha. Euch gefunden Schnuyim zwischen der Lashenis and Mechilti und den Sifri. There's also differences, even though both of them learning out the exact same way. There's also certain Shinuyim, which is going to bring out an afgemina. Aleph in Mechilti is the Lashon Mekan Omro Mitzvas Tefillin, and the Sifri Mekan Omro Ksheneis Tefillin. So again, the Rebbe is back, you see, touching the Inyan Gavra Chetza, but we'll see how the Rebbe puts that up. Base, another difference is Sifri is the Meisiv Kisheneis Tefillin, Neis Shliat Tchila, Shechelet Shechelet Shelreish Tchila Chulu. Mashenki the Mechilti does not say that. Chief Hay, the Rebbe starts explaining another way how to go about the whole thing. Babir Buza. Das was Tfilin Shel Yad, darf man Magdim sein, Fara Noches Tfilin Shel Reish, Afapia, they said in zwei mitzvahs, und eine Ma'ak Vizu Azu, why Taka do you have to be Magdim Tfilin Shel Reish? Till Tfilin Shel Yad, before Tfilin Shel Reish, even though it's two different mitzvahs, and one is not Ma'ak the other. If a person has only a Tfilin Shel Reish, he puts on Tfilin Shel Reish. He has only Tfilin Shel Yad, he puts on Tfilin Shel Yad. If the two mitzvahs, so why is Taka one before the other? Ken Lenin, Bechame Yefan. The Rebbe is going to learn three different ways. First, the Rebbe is going to say two ways, and then the Rebbe is going to give a third. Aleph, das is a din betfilin shel reish. It's a din in tefillin shel reish, but what do you mean in tefillin shel reish? Not in the actual mitzvah, the mitzvah which we can talk later, nor the shleimus mitzvah. But tefillin shel reish is nor b'shas if their hand is done the tefillin shel yad. In other words, we're talking about it's a prat and a shleimus in the mitzvah of tefillin shel reish. Lochein dafür legen tefillin shel reish, dafür fahren legen tefillin shel reish, legen tefillin shel yad. Why does he have to put on tefillin shel yad first? Because in order that tefillin shel reish should be b'shleimus, has to have the shel yad first. Base. That it's not in the shleimus of tefillin. The Rebbe doesn't use it. We hear the word chefza. The Rebbe uses it. We hear the word shleimus of tefillin. Base is as is a din in him seder vider gavre da flegen the tefillin. That's a din how the person has to put it on. In other words, we hear it is the gavre. Freya da verlegen tefillin shel yad, and then noch tefillin shel reish. And the Rebbe explains very interesting. Das heißt, das ist nicht no, das ist nicht negate the mitzvah tefillin shel reish. It's not as we learned in the first way that this is a negate and this shleimus in tefillin shel reish. Und euch nicht in tefillin shel yad. Das ist a din in seder al chosam al yedei ha'odam ha'menicha. This is a seder in the gavna. Interesting what the Rebbe means over here in the parentheses on euch nicht in tefillin shel yad. The first way the Rebbe explained that it's a shleimus in tefillin shel reish. Has nothing to do. It's a shleimus in the shel yad. So what does he mean over here when he's shayla the second way? The first way is meisiv. The Rebbe is meisiv over here. Und euch nicht in tefillin shel yad. That is not negated to tefillin shel yad. Even in the first way is not negated to tefillin shel yad. The negated only in the shleimus tefillin shel reish. I don't know. Maybe it's a simple thing, but I don't know. The Rebbe in Order 12, we're soon to continue on. In Order 12, the Rebbe says, Lahoyer and the 12 Lahoyer mitzafnas benech l'Rambam hilchis tefillin sham. The Sofas benech says like this: that the Gavet tefillin shel yad mitzvah hanocha yakshira. In the tefillin shel yad, the mitzvah is the actual hanocha, what the person does, the Gavet. Aval b'shel reish mitzvah is yehei munach. On the shel reish, the mitzvah is it should be on his head. In other words, the Sofas benech is mechala between the shel yad and the shel reish if it's on the Gavet on the chefetz. Mechol mokim the Rebbe continues on. Gam b'shel yad mevorich. Even though that the mitzvah of the shel yad is on the Gavra, the hanocha d'kshira, he also makes a 7 brachas. Why does it make 7 brachas? But so the Rebbe says, the Rebbe says, the zegeirem l'shel reish yehei munach mishum dekol l'man shebein nechi yishtayim. In other words, even though the shel yad is on the Gavra, still, why do you make a bracha and it says a garagat shavar? Why do you make a bracha on it? Because the shel yad is goyrem that the shel reish should be b'shleimus. That means, in other words, that from the tzofas benech is mashma that it's negayim more on the chefze. Even the shel yad, even though that it's on the Gavra, still it's in order that the shel reish, which is on the chefze, should be b'shleimus. So that's why the Rebbe brings this on the 12. He's saying, this is negate to the mitzvah of tefillin shel reish. The Rebbe continues on. What's an afkimino? The Rebbe continues on. What's an afkimino between these two afanim if it's in the shlemus of the tefillin shel reish, or it's a mitzvah the gavna, the seder hanachosam, the Rebbe says, eine von den Afgemine bepashtes zwischen the zwei Efanim is, oib, hat say beide gelegt bevas achas. He put on the shel reish and the shel yad together in one shot. With me bepashtes, either he put on the shel reish, the shel yad, with his right hand on his left hand, and while he's putting on the shel yad, he's at the same time putting on the shel reish on his head, even though the shel reish has to be put on with the right hand, putting on with the left hand. But what if he did it together? Or maybe it means that two people put it on at the same time. There's a whole shackle of tari if somebody else can put it on. Until on you, an afkimina between the shel yad and shel reish, but akapanim, he put it on both in one shot. And then Rabbi explains, wait, nesh neifim nados is negay and not to the shleimus and mitzvah. From tefillin shel reish. If it's only in the shleimus shel reish, is that in them fall mekayim the mitzvah shleimusa. The end of the day is he has the shel reish on while the shel yad is on. So even if we put it on together, it's a shleimus and the yad. The shel reish is b'shleimus. He has both tefillin on. Aber like in zweiten neifim nados is adin seder hanochas ha'adam, that the person has to first put on the shel yad and then the shel reish. As Fred aflegen the shel yad and the nochtem shel reish, yeshleiman as ot the seder felt damut when elected bebasachas. So if you put on both field bebasachas, he's missing in the action. He didn't do the action. He didn't do the pulas hanachas film in the proper way. That would be a nafkimina between the first way and the second way. Then the Rebbe comes in with a third way. Gimel kemen lernen das is adine mitzvah. Das heißt, an der Seder hanachosam, der chiyuv hakdima von hanochas shel yad is a teil for mitzvahs tefillin shel yad v'shel reish b'shas mis mechuyev in beide. As mentioned before, there's a possibility that you're not mechuyev in both. If chas v'chalil a person doesn't have a hand, it doesn't have tefillin shel reish, he doesn't have tefillin shel yad, he has only one. But if he does have both, and then he has to put them on both, then it becomes a din in the mitzvahs at tefillin that he has to first put on the shel yad, and then the shel reish. Und the nafkemina la'alocha l'maisa, what would be the nafkemina between this third way and the first way? In other words, the second way is not in the shel, it is not in the gabel. The second way, we're going back into the mitzvah tefillin chefza. The difference is, one is aleph is shleimus at tefillin shel reish, and the base is the whole mitzvah at tefillin shel reish. The whole mitzvah is not tefillin, the mitzvah of tefillin. What's an afkemina la'alocha? Soon later on we'll talk about. And Rebbe says later on we're going to talk about how this afkemina manifests in the second way. But right now we're talking the difference in the first and the third. Yes, as Rebbe says, when Eider had gelegt tefillin shel reish, Eider had gelegt tefillin shel yad. He didn't do it properly. First he put on shel reish. See, is there mechuyev uisit on the tefillin and legen ze noch einmal kisidran? Does he have to take it off and put them on again the proper way? Freit tefillin shel yad and the noch tefillin shel reish. Other is genug as if it noch them on the tefillin shel yad. Once he put on the shel reish, he didn't brew it properly, but now he's going to put on the tefillin shel yad. Is it okay, or he has to take it off? Okay, you do a machlekes aposkim machlene bezeh. There's actually a machlekes aposkim in the chreina as the Rebbe is mitzayim in order 16 to the places where the machlekes is brought down. But the Rebbe wants to explain what's an afkemina. It can be a difference between these two ways. First way, and the third way. Wait, nesh neifen. Das is adin in shleimus from tefillin shel reish. As the in them was they said menochem al reish. The mitzvah is only in the shleimus of shel reish. The end of the day, even though you put it on first, and then you're going to put on the tefillin shel yad. Now, is the shleimus of is the tefillin shel reish menochem b'shleimus? Yes. Darf nicht geheilt sein der shel reish. Und es ist maßbig, als wird Anton gleich der tefillin shel yad. Und es wäre der mit shleimus a mitzvah shel reish. Not in the beginning, but eventually it becomes a shleimus of shel reish. Leuten did it neifen, if this is a mitzvah in the hanochas, in the it's a part of the mitzvah still, that the hanocha has to be done properly. Because I didn't mitzvahs tefillin. He's moving as a daf choyle sein the tefillin shel reish. He has to first take off the tefillin shel reish and legen zei kisidra. Because if he doesn't put it on, Kisidron, it's not, the mitzvah is not. In Ha'orah 13, before we go further in the Pnima Sicha, the second part of the Ha'orah 13, the Rebbe says, Olahoir game Prima Godim, and yet over there he asks, Madua yesh yotze b'shini ha-seder. If a person is Mishana, the Seder, why is he Yetze? Hare kol mad omar Rachmanu le'sabed yobed le'mahani. The Gemara says in Tmura that whatever the Torah says you shouldn't do, if you did it le'mahani, the Rebbe is inside the Lekech Teiv, which the Rebbe already quoted, which the Rebbe is going to quote later on in Orah 18. And if you look over there, it's interessant that it comes out from here that it's the din is achson in the gavra. Komad Omar Achmon le'sabed the ovid le'mahani. That's mitzad the gavra. Achson is in the gavra. So in other words, if it would be in the hefta, that would not necessarily be achson. The Lekhtev talks about this whole thing ba'arichas, but it's mashma l'chayda that goes on that this is from here. It's mitzad the achson mitzad the gavra. Just a horror. Let's go back into the Pnim. Sivov. So now we have a shaila. Do you have to take off the filin shel reish and go pour according to the seder, first the shel and then shel reish? Or if you didn't do it properly, you put on the shel reish first, you can leave on the shel reish and then just put on the shel yad, and that's going to be the mitzvah. It's mentioned in Sif, which we just learned, that if it's mitzad the shleimus of the mitzvah, the first way, then you don't have to take it off. If it's mitzad the mitzvah's tefillin, you have to take it off and put it on again and right. It says the Sivov, und das ist der Chiluk zwischen dem Limud, kol zman shebein necha yiyu shtayim, was the Gemara learned up, und der Limud mechilte mekan omer mitzvah's tefillin kshenesh nation shel yad v'kach nation shel reish ukshechel. The Rabbi explains. The limud calls a man shebein necha yiyu shtayim meint, das ist adin in tefillin shel reish. Das, was mit darf magden sein, the tefillin shel yad yiyu shtayim, is negaya to shleimus tefillin shel rosh shebein necha. Like the first way, it's a shleimus in the tefillin. Ubemele, kol b'shas is higdim tefillin shel reish and tefillin shel yad is masbig da noch of tefillin shel yad noch. Und der Mitte der Shem kana lahaba mekayim the chiyuv for kol zman shebein necha yiyu shtayim. So mitzad this limud of kol zman shebein necha yiyu shtayim, which the Gemara learns out for v'hoyu, that's enough to put on the shel yad after you not properly put on the shel reish first. Like the mechilta oben, as is the limud as mekan omer mitzvahs tefillin. In other words, it's a gather in the mitzvahs tefillin, not a shleimus in the tefillin shel rosh. This is the gather of mitzvahs tefillin is beoifen as how does it have the mitzvahs tefillin be done? That you have to put it on properly. Because you know you say nation shel yad v'chakach nation shel reish as akdom shel yad in seder anachoson is adin in mitzvahs tefillin. You're going to be mekayim the mitzvah tefillin by putting on first the shel yad and then the shel reish. And the Rebbe in Order 21 says, even if it's two different mitzvahs, doesn't make a difference if it's one mitzvah or two different mitzvahs. The same, the nukuda is that the shleim, not the shleim, is the mitzvah of tefillin is in seder anachoson. Ubemele, if you b'shas higdim tefillin shel reish, if you put on first the tefillin shel reish, you didn't do the mitzvah tefillin properly. It's not the kuda you didn't do. The mitzvah tefillin is not done properly. Felt in them din by mitzvah tefillin. The mitzvah tefillin is lacking the mitzvah. It's not the proper mitzvah. When the daf chela sein, and not to say the differ, he has to take it off and put it on before. Fit it properly, he has to take off the shel reish, put on the shel yad, and then put on the shel reish again. So that would be an afkimina between the two limudim. So the limud that the Gemara says, calls mashabein necha yiyu shtayim, the Vayla comes out that word, that you don't have to take it off, because it's the called mashabein necha yiyu shtayim, is a tight in the shleimus of the mitzvah, shleimus of the shel shalos. And the shleimus of the shel rosh, even though in the beginning it's not the shleimus, eventually becomes the shleimus. According to the Mechilta, you have to take it off and put it on because it's in a prat in the kiyum of the mitzvah film. The mitzvah film is not niskayim. This is the chilik between the first way and the third way. Says the Rebbe now, Leuten zweiten von Analaben. When we come to the second way, that's a mitzvah in the Gavra. Second way, we went from before in Sif Hey, that's a chelik in the Gavra. It's a seder in the Gavra. It's a Gavra. Leuten zweiten Lados is a din nor and say that noch is in they Adam. Over here, sagt der Rebbe, is dort, it's in the stand, mokim zu trachten. Over here, you can actually explain in both ways. Because being that we're not talking that this is a prat in the mitzvah, being that we're talking that this is an Indian inside a siyas agavno. See, this is Ebazay, the Rebbe says, you can say two ways. What's the two ways? See, this is not a tnai un a prat in seder ha'hanocha shel ha'odam. Und das ist nicht, und das hat nicht geschachtes Mitzvah-Film. It's only a tnai that you have to first put until yad and then shel rosh. That's a prat in the hanhogas adam. Und als tnai, if it's only a tnai in hanhogas adam, is wie reif tnai a mitzvah. As long as you're not talking about the mitzvah itself, you're talking about the tnai, how you have to do it. Is as efshem mishlekuva. So in other words, even though you put it on first the shel rosh and then shel yad. The Asiyas Adam was not done properly. Okay, it's not done properly, but it's only a Tanai, and a Tanai is not in the Kuva. So therefore, you don't have to take it off. B'meila, Oyibhiktim Film Sharoish is masbik as a leg the Noctim Shalyad, and is the mitmakay mitzvah boy. It becomes that his kiyum a mitzvah, the Gavram, is automatically done if you put on the film Shalyad afterwards. Now the person that it becomes good because that night is not market. Oder man kann sagen, was as the din in Seder Hanachoson, Enochanami, it's only a Seder mitzad the Gavra, but being with the Gavra it becomes a Seder Hanachoson. This wird nimshach euch weiter. In other words, what he did l'chatchila is like a polo nimshach, so to say. Is nimshach weiter. So in other words, it means das was the feelings and enoch the monochim eifim. Later on, the film is laying on him is a hemshach from the hanochash film shalosh on agdam film shalyad. In other words, the whole hemshach mitzvah, even when the mitzvah is nimshach, it's coming from our action which is not done properly, and therefore the hemshach mitzvah is not properly. It's not done. It's not nimshach properly. The hemshach mitzvah is not proper. But Mele darf a choyle sein dem Shilreish und sein Leben considern. As the Rebbe brings down the Orah 23, Lahoir medin hanichin kedem ed hayoim. The Thomas Verneach, the film Shilreish al mishe dabar alim shach b'chol rega v'rega shu lovish mekayim mitzvah mashek b'shel yad. And as we mentioned before in the Gemara Menachos, if you look up the Gemara says you have to take it off and put it on properly. You have to put it on afterwards. If you put it on, you have to take it off. Or it's a mashmish film, which is considered a new alabishon hanocha. Like this is the second way, even though it's only mitzad the pu'ulas agavra, but being that nimshach, the mitzvah is nimshach as a result of the pu'ulas agavra, which is done improperly, so the whole mitzvah is improperly. Therefore, you have to take it off. Zog der Rebbe v'yesh leiman. As the mit was the Gemara zog as Rabuna asberli. Asberli means that the whole limud is called the Vaeschanan necha yirstayim as akdamis chalitza shilreish len charuis from them was amakrava hoylu to damas ben necha called Vaeschanan necha yirstayim. What does the Gemara mean with this? What does the Gemara mean to say with this? Is the Gemara mefarish at der erste limud when it gets to the seder hanocha. When lechatchila we learn it out kishu meniach sheyad v'chakach meniach shilreish the pu'ulas hagavra. The sivuk shatim leis hayidecha b'hadam b'hoylu to damas ben necha. Is the asberli is masbir? What is he masbir? Kol zaman shebeini necha yishtayim. So what is it explaining in the limud? As is not a tnai ma'isa hanocha shel agabra unitin im din for mitzvah tefillin gufa. In other words, Rav Huna asberli that when I'm learning out the first limud. What's the first limud? I pull this in the gavra. Kshartum leis hayedecha. Kshartum, as the Rebbe mentioned before, you have to put it on, pull us agavra, and afterwards, right? So mitzad the pulas agavra, maybe it's we don't. The Rebbe said before it's a suffix which way it is. Is it only at night or is it nimshach and then the hemshach is not good? So the Rebbe now Rab Huna Asberli calls Masha bein nechi yishtayim. And what's the tacha called Masha bein nechi yishtayim? We learned before that it's a prat and mitzvah. That's a mitzvah tefillin. Das is not a din. Das is not a tnai in anocha, meist anocha shel agavra, und nicht in dem din von mitzvah tefillin gufa. So mitzvah tefillin is blois negay the prat that calls the Masha bein nechi yishtayim. Only that prat. So even if you didn't do it properly, you put on first the shel rosh and then the shel yad. Mitzad ma'aseh adam, you did a wrong thing. Oh, but what's that called? I look only at calls now at the end of the day, when you're wearing the shalosh and then you put on the shalosh, is called while you have the shalosh, is both are on? Yeah. So b'meila enochanami, you didn't do it like properly. So it's at the beginning of the pasuk, maybe there's a sudden it's nimshach wrong. The rest of the mitzvah is nimshach from a pulas a person which is done wrong. Doesn't make a difference. The main point over here, the Gemara says, Asberli, Rabbona Asberli, calls man should be the nechi yishtayim. The main point over here is the mitzvah tefillin. That the mitzvah tefillin has to have, as we went before, the mitzvah tefillin has to have that it should be both on you at the same time. And it is. So mainly, even in that limud, you can don't have to actually take it off. Then kommt zu the Sofa in Sifri. That's what the Sifri is adding on. Was verlernt es aruis von Kukshartam, calls Mash bein necha, calls Mash al yad b'yad, kein shalosh b'rosh. Mekan omru, kishenesen tfil, leisen shal yad chila v'chakach, leisen shal reis. That's what the Sifri is adding on. That what? Allah, the Gemara is not a gay as his own Zayman noch amal reishe, calls Mash bein necha yishtayim. Das heißt, at der Gdom von Sholyad is not b'chdei so sein Stein calls Masha bein necha. In other words, therefore, mitzad the Gemara, mitzad the limit of the Gemara, comes out that if you put it on first, you don't have to take it off. Aber leiten Sifri is so mitzvah tefillin shel-reish negei, nicht nur that the tefillin shel-reish sollen sein Munachim, wenn euch the tefillin shel-yad sind Munachim. Nor euch der Seder ve'oifel von ten shel rosh b'rosh. Und der Riber neushen shel yad chila. In other words, over here, the Sifri is adding on the second way in the suffix before. That being enachanami, mitzad the Gemara itself is only the pulas of a person does not affect the mitzvahs tefillin. Come the Sifri, and the Sifri says, no. Calls Mash ben nechi yishtayim, aber nation shall yad chila. Kedei is all kena zayin kedeboy the ten shall reish b'reish. So therefore, beside the Sifri, you have to take off. If you put on first the shel reish, you have to take off the shel reish, put on the shel yad, and we put it on again the shel reish. Says the Rebbe Sifches, we call anal is ich move on. Was the Mechilte lernt es aruis von ersten Posig über Pashas Kadesh, B'hoi l'chol eis ha'yodcha, und noch nicht von Posig B'hoi l'eis ha'yodcha in Pashas Voi k'viyacha she'peik b'seif perik b'seif Pashas Boi. Why the Mechilte learns it out from that Posig? The Rebbe explains. Like the Mechilte, we bound that the say that anachosen zadin b'mitzvahs tefillin. Nicht bleib zadin in the Maisa anocha von Gavra. Other than the Shleimus mitzvahs at tefillin shel reish. Not the first way that it's in the Gach and the Shleimus at tefillin. Not in the third way that it's a mitzvah in the Pu'ulas Agavra. But the second way that this is the whole way of the mitzvahs tefillin. Und was the Ribe is the Lashon Mechilte. Mekan omru mitzvahs tefillin. Not Shleimus in the shel reish. Not the Pa'ulas Agavra. Mitzvah tefillin. K'shnesen nation shel yad bakach nation shel reish. Und sagt nicht bekitzer, mekan omru nation shel yad chila. Weil der Chiyuv zu magdem sein der shel yad is nicht bloß a Tanai kedei der noch soll sein der calls Masha bein nechi yishtayim. It's not only in the Shleimus or that a Tanai b'oifen ten shel reish b'roish a Tanai in the how the person has to do it. No, das is a din in mitzvah tefillin. No good. In other words, that the Mechilta is going to the second way, that the third way, that second way, that this is a din in the mitzvah tefillin. Waar lernt men dus op van de mitzvah tefillin zum ersten Mal? Because according to the Mechilta, we're talking about the mitzvah tefillin. Mitzvah tefillin is when it says the first time in the Torah. So we get that we know the mitzvah tefillin is. So bei Meila, Ebazei, sagt der Rebbe, was von dem versteht man als zusammen mit dem Etzem Mitzvah ist gesagt geworden, the din ikri mitzvah. When the Torah says the first time the mitzvah, the Torah is giving you out the main point of the mitzvah. What's the main point of the mitzvah? The main point of the mitzvah is that the mitzvah film has to be properly. Therefore, if you put it on wrong, you put on first the shel reish, you have to take it off, put on the shel yad, and then re-put on the shel reish. Der mocker of them, and this is a mitzvah film, a din in the mitzvah gover. The mocker on this that it's a din in the mitzvah itself. Nid bloizen seder akosuv, no mitzad loshna akosuv. Is nid bloizen mitzad seder akosuv. It's not only because first it says ukshartom, or first it says v'hoyu l'chol eis hayadcha, and then it says ulazakon min enecha. No mitzadam loshna akosuv. Here the Rebbe brings about the whole pasuk. When the pasuk v'hoyu l'chol eis hayadcha ulazakon min enecha, v'lei nemar v'hoyu l'zakon min enecha. It says only once v'hoyu. V'hoya. V'hoya l'chol eis hayadcha ulazakon. It doesn't say again after v'hoya. It says again. It doesn't say v'hoyu l'zakon min enecha. Len men up in the Rishonim, asher shteim l'chshavim la'aviyah v'asiyah achas. Of course, this is one time the word v'hoya. Both of them is one mitzvah, one asiyah, one ahli. Obel halacha. This is the way the Rishonim learn not from that limit. Obel halacha. Was das is the Leute day as melentus up from say that anochas tefillin kshartem leisa that the pasuk which is brought down in la halacha. Then they nechshavim la'aviyah v'asiyah achas. Only in a certain plat, not in the act of mitzvah. The first time it says the parsha that's the first time it says. That's giving out the whole teichen of the mitzvah. Teichen of the mitzvah is that it has to be properly. So therefore, even if you put it on, everything is wrong. You have to take it off and put it on again. About to be learned after the pasuk la halacha ukshatim leisaylacha. Then the only one asiyah. Aber not in them din. What din it says in halacha? One prat. That you have to put it on together, one after the other. Not put on shel yad and then half an hour the shares. You put it on without a hefsek in the middle. But everything else that is considered one asiyah, and therefore if it's not done properly, if you take it off, that doesn't say. That you don't learn that from this pasuk because it's not the first time it says in the Torah the limit of tefillin. Aber like the mechilta said, "Beda noches aviyah v'asiyah achas legamri." Legamri means that it's ma'akev, and therefore you have to take it off and put it on again in the proper way, as the Rebbe says in Ha'orah 27. Bal pizay yishlema bechiluk adroshes da mechilta v'ashas v'pashtus. Lea mechilta who learns it out from the pasuk. Un Kaddish, it feels shal yad, it feels shal reish mitzvah achas. V'lechein lomad hadin ma'akosev v'hoy l'chol leis hayot ozkon minenecha shalei nema rak tziva yechad v'hoy l'chol al tefillin shal yad v'tefillin shal reish v'lei nema b'tziva b'fnei atzmei al tefillin shal reish. That's in the Mechilta. Enkel hashas tefillin beis mitzvah sein. So the Mechilta learns out it's totally one mitzvah. Enkel hashas who holds us two mitzvahs. Lomad b'mashinemar ukshartam leisaynacha one tzivoy, and then it says v'hoyu letzadav b'necha. Two different tzivoyim. Al tefillin sheyad, al tefillin shalosh. It concludes in the Sif Ches. Von dem is b'derech mamela verstandig. At b'shas the mishane given them say that he does need the aviyah v'asiyah achas shebekosu, v'lechein darfer ze noch amal anton kesidra. That's according to the Mechilta. That's all one asiyah, total one asiyah. Schenken according to the Gemara, and same also according to the Sifri. You learn that after the pasuk of Shartam. It's enechanami. It's in a certain sense, as they say before. The Rebbe says before. as a Siya Achas, that it has to be put on together one after the other without a hefsek b'neim. But in the Teichen mitzvah, it's not ma'akev that you have to take it off and put it on again. If you put on the shalish before, you don't have to take it off and put it on again. It seems as the Rebbe goes over all in Yonim for Nigla, the Teres and the Dov, he says, everything in Nigla is how it's eventually also, how it's also in Pnimius, but other Abed in Yonim, Nigla, when the Stalshul from them, he says, and Pnimius, how it's in Nigla comes from how it is Beruchnius, but Pnimius, Valderach Zebin. She is Huksha Kol film no whole Teres compared to film. It's Geshem in the midst in film, then a Faran film Shel Yad and film Shel Reish. Just like in film, there's both film Shel Yad and Reish. Azay, then Eichen the Aveda from Teres Mitzvahs Faran, the zwei Beginners from film. The Aveda by Yid and Teres Mitzvahs is also both Yonim of film Shel Yad and film Shel Reish. Film Shel Yad was selected from Zreya connected Halev. Put it on the hand, right across the heart. Basis of the Aveda Shebelev Yiras Hashem Kabbalah Seir. That shows on now Kabbalah Seir Yiras Hashem Halev Kabbalah Seir Yira. Un Shel Reish is Hanachos is connected to Meach. The Tefillin Shel Reish we put on the Meach. Basis of the Aveda from Seichel Havana B'Hasor. Brakes Rebbe says wie das is mutgish in dem Din ben Nigla Shulchan Aruch as ki mitzvahs Tefillin. There is stresses mitzvahs tefillin. Kiyum of mitzvahs tefillin is la nichan al azreya keneged halev al haresh keneged hameich. Why? Kedei niskim ben afloish she'osi imonu. She would remember all the nisim and the wonders that the Eibush did with us. She made him al yichudai. Shows on the unit oneness of the Eibush. Vashalei akech v'memsholo. That the Eibush is the only one who has the ruling, the power and the ruling. The Yeshaba differ as a result of that. The person will give over like a Baruch Hu and the Shama Shivameach, Begam Tabis, Mechshavas Libel, Abedosi Yisborech. By the Anochas Tefillin Yiskeres Abeda Yisborech B'Yamit Hanaosav. Sta'ar B'Derech Agav. Even though the point over here, the Rebbe is going to bring out that it has to be first the Shel Yad, then the Shel Reish, which means first he has to give over his heart, which is his taivus, and then he has to give over his moyach. Afal became in the lashon of the Alter Rebbe in Shulchan Aruch, and Alderech said it's also in the Shulchan in Siddur, which we have before the Nochtat film. It says V'Yishabel HaKadosh Baruch Hu Haneshama Shi b'moyach v'gam taivus libi. First b'moyach and then the taivus. L'cha'ira should have been maybe fakert, because as the Rebbe is going to explain soon, say that has to be first Shel Yad and then Shel Yad. I don't know. Was Bechlol is in those the zwei Inyonim Hergesh Midas Shebelev, which is the mitzvah Tefillin Shel Yad, and Torah, which is Tefillin Shel Reish. So the two Inyonim, the midas of a person and Torah. The Rebbe continues on. Them and in those the zwei Eroas, and then we have the two Eroas how you have to do. One is Kishumeniach Menich Shel Yad v'Chakach Menich Shel Reish Chsiv, as Yires Chet. That sein Kedem lechachmose. Yira itara lechachma. That is the stepping, the door handle to get into the chachma. V'yes Babai Baruch and Tanya. The Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya. Eishes ho'yabeda ve'ikra v'shorsha. The beginning is lo'ira tchil ha'yira ha'tivis ha'misteres b'lev kol adam. Shalei limited b'melech macham kodesh baruch Hu. First you have to do the Sholom Shel Yad. First you have to do the midas shebelev. The Yira zachet. Noch kommt die zweite Hechel. Then you have a second row, which is already a Hemshech Aveda and a Haim. So called the band Shmein, the Lecher Yishtayim, as the Aveda von Yide fordert sich nicht nur als a Gedome to limit Atera, that the Aveda of Yide is not only a preparation to limit Atera, that first you have to have Yides Cher, nor as euch Bishas und zusammen mit Yides limit Atera. Together with limit Atera, which is the Aveda Shebesechel, V'Avon, V'Asad, Yelena the standing of the Eibishter. Darf euch sein der Aveda von Yira, also at the same time you also need the Aveda of Yira, und damals ist Chachmose miskayemes. It says in Pirkei Avos. Und durch dem kommt man zu noch ein hechere Darge in Yira. That will bring it eventually to even higher dag. Wie die was kommt als Hagdomes Yira. It's higher, different Yira than the one who comes as a preparation to Teira. It's a welcome and kommt zu durch Teira, a welche steht, mein Chochma in Yira. Ook welche Gosse, weil Tzavenu Hashem lasis es kol achuk meila Yira. Das ist die Darge von Yira Yilo, was wird nimmt dafke noch die Avede von Chochma, die Mavu Baruch ist. Them is man massive, and this comes the addition of noch weiter as das was noch ist für shel yad darf sein Fall noch ist für shel reish. Why does it have to have first the shel yad? Die Rossi kedem is lechach mosei is not nur weil ze darf sein the seder in an anhoges order. Not only that, that's the way a person has to act. It's like we said before, it's only a prat in the gavra. As gereit zuzukommen zu Schlemmes von Tilm shel Rosh in order to reach Chochma von Torah, darf man haben, der Hagdomi needs preparation of Gira über Kabbalah Seir. Kedei ist es eigentlich Chmos Miskeyemes. Kol Mashe Ben Anachi Yushtayim. Und durch dem, only through that, kommt dazu zu noch a hechere Schleimes and come through to a higher level in mein Chochma in Gira, es wird an Ile Oichim Adreg von Tilm Shel Yad. Nor, der Seder Gufa is a Indian for Mitzvahs Film. As you said before, that the Seder, putting on first the Shel Yad and then the Shel Reish, becomes a Seder and then in the whole mitzvah, and therefore, as a result, a little before Nikla, that you have to take up the Shel Yad, the Shel Reish first, and re-put on the Shel Yad, and then re-put on the Shel Reish. That's heißt, das ist Malek Freden Tiln Shel Yad. That's what you put on first the Tiln Shel Yad. Is weil euch das is a Iker. In other words, we mentioned before that the Rebbe in parentheses brings down that in the Shlemus of Sharos is also the Shel Yad, that the Shel Yad should before is an Iker, and this is an Iker, and says do in them a Maila. What's a Maila? Well, that's Kabbalah Seil, which is Yira. I feel the Yira Tato, the lower level of Yira, is in your Bittul, Hepachayeshus, Hotzi Ashaychus, some Bittul Atzmi von Etzem and Nefesh. Bittul is not only in an action, but in the Etzem and Nefesh. Begin the Chiddush Nefesh, was is Hecher von der Aveda Shel Yad, von Tefillin Shel Reish. With the Teres of Baal wegen der noch Tefillin Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Fred Tefillin Shel Yad, and noch Tefillin Shel Reish, the same thing also in the Eibish's film. So the Baal brings as in Tefillin Shel Hamayla is the Shel Yad, Tefillin Shel Yad Merames of the Aveda von Nashim Shutim, und the Shel Reish, the Aveda von Baal Teira. Und in Hanochas Tefillin Shel Hamayla is the Avodah b'Kabbalah Seil von Nashim Pshutim Freyer. That Avodah is before. This is a hecher from the Avodah for the Baal Mechen. It's not only is a preparation for the Tefillin Shel Yad. It comes first. That's the man. That's a mile in the Tefillin Shel Yad. It comes first. This is a hecher for the Avodah for the Baal Mechen in Yediyah Vasogas Atera. Und a Yedei Kol Zeh wird aufgetan mit Verstillung B'Shlei Musa. Es wird Avaya Vasiya Achas, totally Asiya Achas, durch dem, was in der Madrege, was in der Madrege von Tefillin Shel Yad, hört sich der Inyan von Achas, beginnt sich Chida, fehlt das dem Achas, euch in der Tefillin Shel Reish, in der Aveda von Baal Mechen, in die Yediyah Vasogas Atera. Durch der Aveda von Achas ist man mamshich in der Welt, Echad, kemaimer, Tefillin der Marei Alma Maksibu, Mikaamchel ki Yisrael gei Echad Ba'ores, as Eden zijn een mamshich, de Mavaya Echod Ba'oretz.